Teacher was astonished to hear a secret about 4-year-old's father, but what she did next surprised everybody. Her heart always spoke to her, telling her that there's still good that resides in people's hearts. It takes a lot of courage to be a selfless person, but little did she know the great act of kindness was just around the corner and destiny was reading its script. The scene was between her and the kindness of which her heart has always reminded her. They both collided like a bang, and this was it, but with a little twist in the scene. It was Nancy who wanted to feel what kindness feels in reality, and she soon found out when she herself became the reason the whole world will see what kindness actually looks like. She wouldn't have ever imagined that she'd become an angel of kindness people talk about. This is the story of Nancy Blur, who helped a 4-year-old kid with all the support he asked for. Her act of gentleness will surely make your day, and this story will touch you to the core, slowly melting your heart and reviving your faith in humanity. Good teacher. Nancy Blur's a preschool teacher and she loves her job, and more than her job, she loves being with the kids. The kids in the preschool just love their teacher who really knows how to take care of them while making them learn new things every day. Even the parents are happy their kids are in Nancy's hands. But then something strange happened in the classroom that changed everything. A typical day. As usual, Nancy was early in the classroom and was waiting for the kids to arrive. She was excited to see those cute faces again after a week. She saw children coming in and was ready to receive them with a smile, and all the kids were looking pretty happy after seeing their favorite teacher in the class. But Nancy's eyes stuck to her student who wasn't looking that happy. Nancy was busy in locating the students to their seats and she waited till everybody settled in. She walked towards this 4-year-old kid who just sat on the first bench he saw. That's not like him. He never sits on the first bench, she thought. What happened to him? Not an unusual him. Nancy knows how playful and smart this kid is. It's not like she expects anything from a 4-year-old, but still, it was making Nancy worried about him. She was waiting for the class to start so she gets time to ask the kid what was the matter. Because of a week's gap, it took a little longer for everybody to settle in. Nancy kept watching this kid who seemed like nothing is fun around him anymore. Just think about it. A 4-year-old kid who's used to playing and laughing all the time just sitting like a depressed teen. It's not a very nice sight to behold. She was shocked to hear what the kid told her. The little boy. The boy who made Nancy really worried about him is Camden. He was the most playful and cheerful kid in the class who never created problems. Everybody loved him, but today Nancy felt like something was missing. And what was it? It was Camden's laughter that made everybody's day. What happened to it? She found out soon. Strange behavior. Even during lunch break, Camden didn't go out with others and kept sitting on his table inside the class. His friends kept calling him over to play with him, but Camden was lost somewhere. He folded his hands on the table and his head was resting in them, and he kept looking outside the window without blinking. Nancy asked him to eat his lunch as lunch break was about to be over, but he didn't respond to Nancy and just sat on his bench like a statue. Something bad was bothering him, but what was it? Nancy decides to take action. For Nancy, kids have always been special. For her, the kids' well-being was the first priority, and she did exactly that. She tried calling Camden's father to ask about Camden's condition but couldn't reach him. Even trying a lot of times, she wasn't able to talk to him, and now Nancy became really nervous. On one hand, he was Camden who was lost in his own thoughts, and on the other hand, she couldn't talk to his father. What was going on with Camden's family? Time to talk to Camden. Nancy called Camden to her desk when she made him sit on the chair beside her. Camden's face was looking really pale, and by looking at her eyes, Nancy could tell this little kid was crying a while back. He's just a kid and he still managed to control his emotions that are literally overflowing and asking for help. Nancy asked him what the matter was that made him so pale and gloomy. Tears flowing from his eyes and his legs shaking, he told her everything. Nancy didn't realize, but she was also in tears and couldn't believe what she was hearing. It wasn't fair that a kid was going through so much. School over. Nancy was in shock about everything Camden told her. Even she feels the same pain that was flowing inside Camden's body, but being an adult, she didn't lose hope and tried her best to calm Camden. He tried stopping himself from crying, but the tears just came out like water. Nancy was trying her best to make him better, but it seemed like nothing was working. It was the bell that diverted every other kid's mind. They were all looking very worried just by watching Camden's condition. It was the first time that Nancy had no solutions to the problem, but what she did next brought back faith in humanity. A guardian angel. Save for Camden, all his classmates already left school. Nancy was waiting for Camden to leave, but to her surprise, the little boy decided to walk home alone. Nancy was shocked to see that usually it was his father that picked him up, but today he was nowhere to be seen. Nancy picked her bag up and stopped Camden. She couldn't leave a kid alone and decided to drop him off. Camden, who hadn't eaten anything since morning, was looking very weak. Then she took a different route and Camden wasn't aware of it. Little outing. Nancy took Camden to a restaurant for a meal. She knew he wouldn't eat, but still she tried. They both sat in a restaurant and Nancy ordered some French fries, 2 burgers, and a Coke. Kids love burgers and even Camden was fond of them. When the order arrived, Camden kept staring at the burger. He could feel his stomach making hungry noises inside and he wanted to eat it, but something was stopping him. Nancy sensed it and picked the burger up and gave it to Camden, who ate it like he hadn't had a meal in a while. Nancy just kept staring at the sweet little boy and even offered him her own burger. It was time to leave and then Nancy reached Camden's house. She was shocked. Ride back home. Camden was sitting on the front seat beside Nancy. One moment she saw him looking out from the window and the other she found him sleeping like a baby. She turned the volume of the radio down and drove slowly so she wouldn't wake him from the sleep he hadn't had for days. They reached home and Nancy wanted to wake him up, but she didn't really want to. Then she did and it was already late. She picked Camden in her arms so he wouldn't lose sleep and walked towards his home. The gate wasn't locked though. What's this? What's really happening? Nancy was knocking at the front door of Camden's house and there was no response. To her surprise, the door was already opened. She was frightened and couldn't decide her next move. It wasn't safe, she thought, but why is the gate open? Camden was sleeping in her arms and she didn't want to wake him. She walked around the house to see if someone was inside, but she couldn't make it out as the curtains were locked. There was a neighbor inside to whom she could ask for help, but she built up her confidence and walked inside the house. The view was surprising, not a sight she expected. She held Camden tightly in her arms and entered the house. She switched on the lights and was shocked to see that everything was out of place. Even in the kitchen there used to be cookware in the sink and the whole place was smelling. Nancy found a place for Camden to sleep and tried her best to clean up some space around him. And while she was cleaning the room, she found a piece of paper and read it. Though Camden told her about the situation, this was something entirely different. Sick father. Camden told her about his father being sick for several weeks, but after reading that piece of paper, it made her realize this wasn't just a sickness that can be cured. The piece of paper was actually a report of Camden's father. She understood all the changes in Camden's behavior and was now even more worried about him. She heard a knock at the door and it was Camden's father there. He wasn't looking well and she knew why. The reason for his sickness wasn't something which could be easily sorted out. Father's health. Daryl Peterson was the 34-year-old father of Camden, sitting on the sofa which his son was sleeping on. Camden was awake from the knock and was smiling now that his father was home. The last time Nancy saw him, he was in good shape and healthy. He was trying hard to smile back while he was talking to his son, but Nancy saw the pain he was hiding from his son just to make sure he wouldn't get worried. When they saw Camden was asleep again, the father told Nancy he was diagnosed with IgA nephropathy. Nancy knew well that IgA nephropathy can do with a person's health, but Daryl's condition was worse. Fortunately, things were about to change for everybody when an unexpected surprise fell on Daryl's lap. No, Camden. Nancy and Daryl both were busy talking and Camden was busy sleeping in the next room. They thought he was still sleeping but were shocked to see Camden sitting in the kitchen, who was weeping sitting on the floor. He heard it all. Daryl was very sad, but he didn't hide the truth anymore and told his son everything. Camden was a brave kid, though he knew that things would become hard, but he was ready and hugged his father hard. What is IgA nephropathy? IgA nephropathy is a condition that takes effect when there's a drastic increase in the levels of antibody IgA, immunoglobulin, in our kidneys. And due to that, our kidneys start malfunctioning with a process of tissue damage and inflammation. Camden had no idea of this condition, but just by looking at his father's face, he knew something was wrong with him. He decided to provide all the support he could by staying strong as much as he could. He was praying day in and night to make his papa better, and God was listening to this little kid sincerely. Hospitalization and kidney transplant. It didn't take long for Daryl's condition to get worse, and after a few months his kidneys started working abnormally, and in a year he was struggling with full-on kidney failure. After his condition deteriorated further, he was admitted into a hospital in Manson City, and the extreme process of dialysis treatment started after the day he was hospitalized. Camden could see in how much pain his father was and promised to his dad that he didn't show any sign of fear and sadness. Little did he know his father was getting worse and worse day by day, and the only option left was a kidney transplant. But it wasn't easy. What came next, though, was a shock to everybody, especially to Camden. Waiting. Daryl's condition wasn't getting any better, and he was waiting for his name to show up on the waiting list, selected patients for a kidney transplant. The process of a kidney transplant is a long one. It takes months, weeks, or even years for a person to get a perfect match. Camden didn't lose hope, and he was praying for his dad to get better. One sudden day, his father was really sick, and little Camden could hear him scream. He felt so helpless that he was running in the corridor to call a doctor for help. Instead of a doctor, he found his class teacher, Nancy. Teacher's reaction. Nancy was surprised to see the little one running from one room to another to find help for his dad. Camden looked so afraid, and it wasn't fair for this kid, and Nancy held his hand and asked him to come with her. Nancy went to the reception and asked to call the doctor as it was an emergency. Nancy asked Camden to relax, that everything would be fine, and she didn't leave Camden's side until the doctor managed to ease away some of Daryl's pain. Nancy was worried about little Camden, and while his father was taking the rest, she took Camden back to his home to give him a change of clothes and feed him a bit as he hadn't eaten. She brought household groceries for Camden and did all the chores of the house and took care of him until his father got better. But Nancy was tired of looking at Camden like this and made a decision. Her decision. Nancy decided to help Daryl out by donating one of her kidneys. I had a coworker who years ago had donated a kidney to someone in her church, Nancy explained. It was an important part of her life's journey, and that was inspirational to me. When I heard about Daryl and Camden's situation, it just felt like the right thing to do. But even she knew that kidney transplant isn't an easy process, and only good intentions don't help in making you a perfect match. Before the doctors could start the procedure, they had to check her medical history and decide if she matched us all. All is well. Nancy had to wait for a day to get the confirmation from the doctors, and she was a perfect match. I was really excited about it. I was ecstatic. I don't know what I would have done for closure if I wasn't a match, Nancy said. Things were looking great for both Camden and Daryl, but there were still several things they needed to sort out. Paperwork and tests. As we said, a kidney transplant isn't an easy process, and before Nancy could go further with the process, she had to undergo several tests, including blood and urinalysis, CTs, and EKGs. She also went for a psychological consult to see if she was prepared mentally and emotionally. Fortunately, every test she took came out positive, and she was ready to give Camden's father a new lease on life. Grateful family. Camden's family didn't expect this much from Nancy because people like Nancy with selfless hearts are not easy to find. The whole family couldn't thank her enough for the things she was doing. The family even went to the school to visit Nancy before the big day to thank her. I had friends and family come forward who wanted to donate, but these didn't work out for medical or other reasons, Daryl explained. Then Miss Nancy approached me. Ready to go. Nancy was prepared mentally and emotionally to move further with the process. She met all her family members and friends and was ready for the new journey. Daryl later explained that he didn't want Nancy to go through with this process and was worried about her health, but she was determined. Operation completed. Nancy was risking her life without even asking anything back, but the state of Iowa wasn't deaf, and they made sure she got the best transplant surgeons. Surgeons like Alan Reed, MD, Zoe Stewart Lewis, MD, PhD, and Daniel Katz, MD, who made sure that they'd try their best and did their best, and the operation was a success. You could tell that every person wanted to be there for you, Daryl explained later. Thankful. The operation was a success, and the Camden family couldn't control their happiness and rushed inside when the doctors allowed them. There was happiness inside the room, and everyone was crying tears of joy. It was Camden who rushed towards Nancy before he hugged his father. Both families made sure they'd stay in touch and would help each other out in any way they could. Camden couldn't be happier. Everybody was happy to see Camden happy, who lost all hope, but was now seen laughing and jumping around. His father got a second chance and was now determined to give his best for Camden in his future. But the family had something else in mind, and they decided to go further with it. Raise awareness. Daryl and Nancy made the decision to raise awareness about the significance of organ donation and left no stone unturned. With the help of family, friends, and the University of Iowa's Transplant Center team, they made sure that just like their operation, this campaign would also be a success. News coverage. The media caught wind of this story and also helped them raise their issue. The story of Nancy, Daryl, and little Camden was out, and people were moved by it. It was emotional and inspiring at the same time and helped in their campaign. Real values. The story of Nancy and Daryl tell us is that there is still good left in this world. There are selfless people who are willing to help us out when they need it. It's not about doing something big like Nancy did, but it's about the gesture. Help a person in need and you can turn their lives around. We're human and we should define it in the right way. Second chance. How do you ever thank someone for saving your life, Daryl said. She really is an amazing woman. Daryl couldn't thank Nancy enough, and he owes his life to her. He's promised to give all the happiness he could to Camden, and we hope they live their life peacefully and happily without any major complications. There are other stories that define kindness which will surely melt your heart. They may not be as big as Nancy's act, but still they'll make you feel good. The man in the market. This guy who went to the grocery shop was short $12. He was taking out his stuff to equal the amount he was carrying with himself, and then this guy who was standing behind him stopped and offered $20. "Please don't put yourself out," I said to him. In reply, the stranger told him a story. "Let me tell you a story. My mother's in the hospital with cancer. I visit her every day and bring her flowers. I went this morning and she got mad at me for spending my money on more flowers. She demanded I do something else with that money, so here, please accept this. It's my mother's flowers." Jim in the job. Jim couldn't decide if he should retire. One day he saw a young man who used to work with him, and Jim found out the condition in which the man was living in. The young fellow was married and had 3 children, was struggling to make ends meet. He had no job and was trying hard but couldn't find one. Jim was moved by his story and the next day resigned from his job and suggested the young man for his replacement. After 6 years, the young guy's working there and his wife has improved dramatically. 7 miles from me. This guy's story is really amazing. When he found out that he was locked his keys inside the car and his cell phone was in it, then he saw a teenager who was on his bike and asked what's wrong. He told the teenager and he said, "But even if I could call my wife, she can't bring me her car key since this is our only car." The teenager handed the guy his cell phone and said, "Call your wife and tell her I'm coming to get her key. That's 7 miles round trip. Don't worry about it." After an hour, he saw the teenager again, who handed him his car key and refused to take any money, and in return said, "Let's just say I needed the exercise." I can still help. The story of the doctor who just a couple of hours ago diagnosed his patient Jimmy with pancreatic cancer was stunned to see him in a parking lot helping an elderly guy with a car. The doctor shouted, "Jimmy, what are you doing?" And Jimmy replied smiling, "My cancer didn't tell me not to help others, Doc." Kindness can be found anywhere, at any time.